Any business that is in the business of making only money is a poor business. Every enterprise has to have in its DNA a purpose.
Yeah. There's so much noise in the Indian market, in Singapore, in the US, of course, about two things. Founders celebrate when they raise capital or when they exit.
Many of us lead our lives in the scarcity mindset. It's a win-lose game. It's a zero-sum game.
It's not something special that only people from Ivy League schools can do. I think it's been proven for centuries that it's a skill you can learn.
The challenge is there is an attribution problem, there's a contribution problem. We all struggle with attribution to say, oh, today what did I add? But I think the contribution is where we need to focus on. How do you leverage the power of entrepreneurship to do good, to feel good, and to make good money?
Hi everyone, a very good morning and welcome to another episodes of TIE Talks. This is a very special morning because I have a very dear friend who I have known through the TIE network because he's done such wonderful work both at TIE Bangalore, which is where he sort of is from and has been heading the chapter, spearheading some tons of initiatives both at the urban and rural level. He's done a lot of great work at the TIE global level. And I think what fascinates me is the humility and the energy the man has. And there's so much to cover today. Hopefully we'll learn a lot about the Indian startup revolution that he's been a part of as an entrepreneur with exits. He's obviously championing entrepreneurship as a movement across India, not just in tier 1 India, but across Bharat cities and states. Also looking at how can we create jobs, how can we create opportunities for women. And well, it's such a pleasure to host him in Singapore, where this evening we'll be doing an event together. Madan, welcome to Singapore.
Thank you so much, Prantik. It's always a pleasure to be here, and especially with the energy of TIE Singapore. And looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Madan, when I was thinking about this, I was really trying to sort of think, where do I start? And then what piqued my interest was the tagline that you have on your LinkedIn profile, because there are so many facets to you. And I want to start by just requesting you to unpack that line that you have, that, where you say you're connecting dots, you're seeding possibilities, you're creating and spreading abundance and trying to be a humane being. I think that does capture the essence of Madan, the human being. So tell us, what does that mean for you?
Thank you. And it's interesting that the first time I'm having a conversation on that line, so glad that you picked it up. I think there are 4 key words there, Prantik, that really resonates with me, right? One is, of course, we're all human beings. How do we be humane beings, right? Which means you put kindness before everything else. You take the empathy and say, how can you make the world a better place? And to me, that is what a human being is.
Yeah.
The aspect of abundance, therefore, comes from that fact that many of us lead our lives in the scarcity mindset, right? Saying that, it's a win-lose game, it's a zero-sum game. And I think when we frame it from an abundance perspective, it becomes a win-win game. There's no ceiling, right? And you can structure possibilities in such a way from an abundance standpoint, which is where seeding possibilities of abundance is something that is very close to my heart. To say, how do you then say, hey, listen, if 1 + 1 can be 11, which is what I think we very proudly waved that flag at TIE, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is the key of possibilities. And to do that, you need to connect the dots, right? If you can look at saying, hey, if you're doing something, I'm doing something, how do we connect the dots that is in a way meaningful for both of us and for the rest of the world, which can open up a lot of possibilities. So yeah, those 4 words of connecting the dots of possibilities of abundance in being human, to me resonates a lot with how I think.
Beautifully stitched. And would you say that entrepreneurship to you is a means to sort of get to those ends? What does entrepreneurship mean to you within that realm of that definition?
Absolutely, Prantik. In fact, 100 years ago, somebody said it beautifully, and it's interesting that it'll come from that word. They said, any business that is in the business of making only money is a poor business. Guess who would have said it?
I'm waging a guess. It's someone from the Tata family.
That was 175 years ago when Jamshedji Tata said it, right? We exist because of the community, right? We are here to serve the society in such a way that it's sustainable, right? And that's what the true essence of the business is. I'm sure Henry Ford, who said it in 1920, would have borrowed this line from the Tatas. And to me, that is the essence of entrepreneurship, right? It's not about the capital side alone, nor it's about the social side alone. right? It is about how do you leverage the power of entrepreneurship to do good, to feel good, and to make good money. That intersection to me is what entrepreneurship is all about.
And where did that idea get seeded in, Madan? Let's sort of go back. You said 100 years, but maybe let's go back 2, 3, 4 decades. Where did that spirit come in you? Maybe take us through your childhood, where today when you look back, you might be able to connect the dots that maybe a spark was sort of, someone created that spark that eventually led to your journey.
Now, my dad was a entrepreneur. In those days, he was in business, right? Either you worked in a bank or you worked as a teacher.
Was this in Karnataka?
It was in Bangalore.
Bangalore itself.
Yeah, in fact, he set up one of Bangalore's first tire shops.
Okay.
In a road which is now filled with tires, tire shops. And I'd seen him up close, battle through the whole business cycles, right? I mean, some months we used to have good business. Some months, we used to go to the extent we come from a low middle class family where my mom used to ration milk those months when we didn't have enough to go by.
Yeah.
And for me, that was fascinating to see how he took it all on his chin.
Yeah.
Maybe that seeded a thought saying that, hey, listen, this is something that is very interesting. But I think if I look back, the journey began in my school days when I was the president of a young students movement. It was called YSM.
Right.
It was called the Youth Student Movement or something like that. And there, a lot of us got together to go into the slums, to teach English to the kids there, to do some work on health, so on and so forth. And that got me interested and an exposure early days to say, hey, listen, there's a world out there which is worse off than where we come from, right? And how do we then figure out what we can do to help that? Maybe 4 years later, and I credit a lot to that movement. Of course, there's Rotary, and the youth movement of Rotary is called RoTrac. So I became the president of RoTrac JP Nagar. I joined the club in early days and then became the president. And for me, running a RoTrac club was almost like running a venture. You had to decide your projects, you had to build the team, you had to go, of course, we were talking of small money, then 20,000, 30,000. Those itself look like a large amount of money.
To raise money is not hard.
But that was the thought to say, hey, you could conceptualize a project, you could go convince people, you could get a team, you could raise money, and you could execute it well, which benefited somebody. In fact, the kernel of my first project came from there. My first startup, MeritTrac, which I started in 2000. In 96 or 97, we used to organize mock CET tests for students as a service, right? Let students prepare for exams. And that we did as a service project for the government school kids. And that probably had a role to play when I started out MeritTrac as India's first skills assessments company. So to your point, I think what is important is that there is no one aha moment, like Archimedes when you say shout Eureka or whatever, right?
I wish.
Exactly. I think it's a series of experiences that shape your thinking. And if you can continue to connect the dots, see possibilities, it'll all add up.
Beautiful. And, so let's talk about MeritTrac. And then maybe I want to start with the end and then sort of backtrack. I was looking at, obviously, the work that you've done, eventually had an exit, Manipal. And I look at you today. Of course, I've gotten to know you much later after that journey. There's so much noise in the Indian market, in Singapore, maybe in the US, of course, about two things. I keep hearing, I want to, founders celebrate when they raise capital or when they exit. All right. But sometimes as an exited founder myself, I realize probably a lot more of the joyous moments are in that journey, between those bookends. But let's start with your exit. My question is, you have done, you've gone through a journey of probably 5 or 10 entrepreneurs after that exit. So tell us about that exit moment. How did that happen? And why did Madan not stop? Why are you doing so much of whatever you're doing? That we'll explore. But, a lot of people exit once, either take advisory roles, go to the beach, do whatever. But I want to start at your exit. Clearly, the exit seems to be an entry point into something much larger.
No, again, an interesting question there. And to reflect on, I never really saw it as an exit. The whole idea was Indian IT industry is booming. We need to assess people. Talent and talent assessments will become a valuable entity. So 3 of us with absolutely no background in HR, recruitment, assessment just jumped in and said, it looks like a great opportunity. Let us build it. Went through the usual roller coaster ride. My first investor was an agriculturist from Shimoga, who had the the Kida to say, hey, I want to do something in with the young startups,
Right.
because a few entrepreneurs from Shimoga had made it big in Bangalore, right? But and we raised money from HSBC in 2005. Those days looked like a large sum of money, still is about $4.5 million that we raised. When 2007 Manipal, we started talking, they had an assessment company. And I wanted to enter the education space. So we went and said, how can we acquire that entity? Right? And say, we want to grow. And Manipal looked at us and liked us and said, why don't we partner? We will pick up a stake and we'll merge that entity with yours. And that's how the beginning of the exit happened. Finally, the MeritTrac exit happened in 2011. It was a 4-year partnering journey where we saw a lot of possibilities. So to me, it was never that, you signed a deal and then you handed over the keys of the house and said, it's yours. But by 2011, when I had worked with Manipal for 4-5 years, and then the CEO said, why don't you come over to the mothership and let's do something large. And 2011 to 2013, I spent a couple of years in Manipal trying to build a US business. But around that time, something in me had shifted to say, I was getting sharper on this framing of what is the intersection of doing good, feeling good, and making good money, because I was doing a lot of the philanthropy work that I'd started out. But I said, this is not enough. Just not enough to write a check and say, here you go. You had to roll up your sleeves and get into the field. And that was the trigger for me in 2013 to say, it is time for me to jump in rather than be on the sidelines.
Fantastic. And we'll obviously deep dive there. But, in that journey, in your first innings as an entrepreneur, if you had to recall probably one of the highest moments and one of the lowest moments, what would that be?
Quite a lot of it. The lowest moment, maybe I'll start with that. I mean, we've had several low moments, but one of the moments was that, early on in our days when we lost a customer, a large customer, which was like 50% of our revenues. And some blow up had happened and we were served a termination notice to say, we don't need your services from tomorrow. I still remember, and we were like barely a few crores of revenue then, but 50% of your revenue, we were about 50 people, and say, what will I do from tomorrow? How will do we have to let go of 25 people? Do we have to, shut down the company? What do we do? To me, that was a blow that still, gives me the chills when you think about it. And we survived and we managed to claw back that customer over a period of time. And usually this happens in almost every other entrepreneur's life, right? You lose a customer, you lose an investor, whatever. The highs have been phenomenally, that's what you live for also, right? Of course, the highs and the lows are just two imposters. You just need to do your journey. That is the larger lesson. But I think getting Manipal on board was a big high for us, because you got a recognized brand. You no longer had to worry about not just customers, because that opened up the doors for a lot of people, but also I think working with Ranjan Pai and Anand Sudarshan, who was the CEO then, was such a high because, interestingly, Prantik, in that exit, there were no golden handcuffs. There was no minimum periods of that you had to lock in. We just said, listen, if we enjoy working with each other, we will, right? If it doesn't, we'll figure out ways of doing something else. And I think that joy lasted a long time.
And, this is obviously the first decade of this millennium, this century. And the Indian IT services, Indian tech companies were beginning to do well outside in the US. The Indian startup boom probably was just about, going to kick off. What was it like being an entrepreneur in India in that decade? Today, of course, the Indian startup ecosystem is world famous and it's, it's a different rocket ship. But in that decade, were you unsure that is entrepreneurship the right way? Because clearly things were not at the peak yet.
Yeah, absolutely. 2000 to 2010 were early days of the startup world, even though, TAI was active. TAI got into Bangalore in 99.
Right.
But it was still very small, Prantik. If you, I still remember listening and hearing about Flipkart way back in 2008-9, that somebody is trying to sell books like Amazon and stuff like that. But it was never really, it was closed door, small group conversations. I think it is only post the first decade of the century that you said, 2010, 2011, that it really started to take off. But the good part was, given the TAI network, that was the only entrepreneurial space in town.
Right.
Right? I mean, now Bangalore, you throw a stone, you'll hit an entrepreneur network or you'll hit an event that's happening on entrepreneurship, which is not the case. It was quite like the Wild West in a way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, all possibilities were on. You could come and think of anything.
Yeah.
And that was fun, but and that was the decade then we were heads down building MeritTrac.
Yeah.
2000 till about 2010, 11.
Yeah.
So it was very, very invigorating.
And let's talk about TiE. When did TiE happen? Do you have a vivid memory of who brought you into TiE? When did you become a charter member? Why did you become a charter member?
I spent some time before starting MeritTrac, about a year. I worked in Infosys.
Right.
And I was fortunate to be in Nandan's team. So I stayed in touch with the team.
Yeah.
When Nandan brought TiE to Bangalore in 99, somebody said, hey, there is some network that Nandan is now driving. And 2000, when I came back to Bangalore, I was working in Japan for a year, trying to sell software to the Japanese with a company called Emphasis, which later on was earlier Avatar was BFL software. So I was the sales guy for BFL for Japan.
Yeah.
So 2000, when I came back to Bangalore, and obviously you started the entrepreneurial journey, somebody I remember mentioned from the Infosys gang about TiE.
Okay.
And I remember attending a first meeting in 2001 or something, where Nandan was chairing that there was a talk.
You've already started MeritTrac.
I had already started MeritTrac.
Yeah.
I had already started MeritTrac. And there were barely some 10, 15 of us in the room. I still remember asking a question saying, oh, what happens if you don't return equity? Can they file cases against you? Will they go to jail? I mean, it was as naive as that, right? No. That was my introduction to TiE. Yeah. And what made me, fall in love with TiE was again sometime in 2001 when 9/11 happened. Yeah. I mean, end of 2001 September, and end of 2001, our business had come to a standstill. In December of 2001, we had zero revenues. Our investor had gone, our angel investor, who was an agriculturist, said, hey, I don't have the money. I've lost my money in the stock market crash. So don't look to me. Yeah. In fact, he requested that we had some 4-5 lakhs in the bank, that he return it to them, which we did. So 2002, we were almost clear that this is the end of the road. We had to shut it down. And I remember attending one of those TiE meetings on a bleak one evening, January evening, thinking, oh, next week or tomorrow, this is it. I have to take a call. And I remember, I don't even remember what the talk was, but there was this guy sitting next to me during tea break. He made the mistake of asking me, so what's happening? Why do you look a little dull?
Yeah.
And I just poured my heart out. I said, we've done this journey for a year. It's not working. I have to shut it down. He just took me to a quiet corner, put his hand on my shoulder and said, this all happens. Tell me your idea. And he said, this looks like a great idea. And he comes from that industry. I'm still in touch with him, a fantastic guy called Aproop Sengupta. He said, why don't you come and meet me next week and let me help you? And that conversation of 5 minutes changed my outlook. To say, hey, if this guy is able to validate what am I doing.
Someone you have no relationship
at all. And he is offering help.
Yeah.
Right? That made me think that night, why should we give up? Right? And to me, that is the fundamental premise of TiE. Right? How do you just put your hand around the shoulders of entrepreneurs and say, we are here. Right?
Sometimes don't worry. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes, right? It just takes that love.
Yeah.
And that bonhomie to say, hey, we are all together.
Beautiful.
I think to me, that was the defining period. And that, when I got an opportunity to work with, TiE had organized the TiE Entrepreneurial Summit in 2007. Yeah. And I was asked to volunteer, which I did. And it was fascinating. Post that event, the then president said, why don't you come and join the board as a charter member?
Yeah.
And that has been the journey from 2008.
And that love story continues.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. I hope, a lot of the charter members listening, because sometimes they also ask us, beyond the events, beyond the programs. But I think these are these anecdotes.
Yeah.
Because I even remember seeing a video, by the founder of OYO as well, where he said, I think you had shared on the group that he was just there, happened to listen, something sparked. Yeah. And I think I tell my charter members as well that, look, it's a network. It's up to you. How do you sort of make the most of it? But fundamentally, how do you also give back? How do you become like this gentleman approved? Because you never knew.
Exactly.
Had it not been for him, maybe you wouldn't be here today.
Exactly. Absolutely, Prantik. See, the challenge is there is an attribution problem. There's a contribution problem.
Beautiful.
Right? We all struggle with attribution. Yeah. Right? To say, oh, today what did I add? Yeah. Which is okay. But I think the contribution is where we need to focus on to say, how did I contribute to somebody's journey, right?
Yeah.
It's not about attribution. So if you look back and the various journeys we've had as charter members and as associate members or entrepreneur members, as we call them as, you never know what that 5 minutes of a conversation can do. Even now, I meet a lot of people who come and say, you know what, you had invited me for that event. In that event, I met somebody who I partnered with and he introduced me to an investor and the journey has taken off. You'll never be able to quantify that.
Yeah.
But you know you're making a difference.
And that's what you say, right? That you never know where the dots connect.
Exactly.
But somewhere they do.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 years, 6 months, God knows.
Right? And to me, when the founding fathers of TIE said this is a very spiritual journey.
Yeah.
See, 3 things are important, right? You need purity of intent. And TIE is all about purity of intent.
Yeah.
There's no vested interest except to say entrepreneurs have to see success and has to be successful. The second is clarity of thought. With our 5 pillars, we are very clear. This is what we're going to do. And 3 is intensity of action. You got to be at it. To me, these are the 3 mantras that how do you have purity of intent, clarity of thought, and intensity of action? The universe will recognize and somebody will benefit from that.
Fantastic. Let's sort of get back to your journey post 2011, 2013, that sort of period when you said something shifted. Maybe we'll start with this beautiful term that you've sort of coined around rural and urban, right? Maybe just give us your lens of what is Rubonomics. We're going to hear more about it at the event today. What does that juxtaposition and what does that phrase mean for you and what are you sort of doing about it?
Yeah. Let's start with what shifted.
Sure.
MeritTrac had assessed millions of people by 2010. I had seen talent from 400, 500 cities making their way into companies like Microsoft, Accenture, Infosys. They were all our customers. And what I had seen was that how talent is evenly dispersed, right? It didn't matter whether you're from some small town in the Northeast or whether you're from a town in Karnataka. You could see the same spark, right? There was no geography played a big role at the fundamental core. I had come to realize that there is something beyond just location and this thing, right? So we did an experiment in 2009 with a couple of friends around taking unemployability challenge at the extreme, where we said, what if we took the most unemployable person on the face of this earth, and is it possible to transform such an individual into an English-speaking, computer-literate professional? And lo and behold, in 2009, when we participated in this process, and saw literally young people from the hinterlands of Karnataka who had never seen an English alphabet in their life, could actually in 6 months stand in front of an audience, give a speech in English, completely grammatically incorrect, but the confidence that they had and the ability for them to aspire and to dream and to see those possibilities, that process that we put them through changed my life, because I come to believe then that there is unlimited potential in every human being. And one of our dear mentors those days was Professor Mohammed Yunus, who, when we presented, he said, absolutely, he says, a lot of us die without knowing what treasures lie within. And to me, that became a very powerful statement that how do you unearth the treasure for everybody? And that shifted. And to an extent, I was seeing that the things that we did at MeritTrac, to an extent, was a disservice. To say, you are employable, but you're not. That is right from a company lens, but not from an individual lens. Right? Because just because you're not employable today for a particular job doesn't mean you're useless.
Fair enough.
Right? So when Head Held High Foundation was conceptualized, this was the starting premise that there is unlimited potential in every human being, every youth. How do we unlock that potential through this process? And glad to share that, 15 years, we've touched about 200,000+ youth across the country. And to me, that was the genesis of this Rubonomics concept, right? The whole thing is we see rural and urban as 2 separate systems. We see corporates and social sector as 2 separate systems. We talked about that. We see markets and development as 2 separate ecosystems. And as long as we keep it separate, the flow doesn't happen, right? So first we need to bring it together. And 2, can we bring it together on the power of aspirations? Because I've seen that irrespective of where you are, deep in your hearts, we all carry the same aspirations.
Surely.
Of being that human beings, of being some contributors to the society, so on and so forth. There is unlimited potential, which I had seen in, through the experiments at Head Held High. Third, that there is immense entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, we were never meant to be employees.
Correct.
Right? millennia we've
Yes.
been entrepreneurs, right from the hunting, scavenging, gatherers, hunter-gatherers, to the last only 150 years have we got corporatized.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, we're all a nation of entrepreneurs or a world of entrepreneurs. That there is equal entrepreneurial spirit, and technology can be a great enabler, like AI that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So when you put these four forces together, that aspirations, potential, the unstoppable entrepreneurial energy, and the exponential AI, you can create a new rural. And therefore, the rural-urban space as a continuum was Ruben, and the construct was Rubonomics. So in my mind, it's a perspective and a framing to say, can you apply these four forces to any initiative to make it bloom in its fullest way?
Beautiful. And talking about getting these so-called opposing forces together, like what's your lens? Of course, you have run for-profit ventures now. Obviously, you're looking at social enterprises, not-for-profit. Do you see that dichotomy can be solved where you could have businesses, like you said, do good, feel good, whilst being profitable? We talk about triple bottom line. Why are we not seeing those two forces come together and blend?
Exactly. And that is the whole objective of the Rubonomics Global Forum. How do you bring these so-called unusual suspects together to create models that can benefit everybody, right? So many times I think that, when we say there is an enterprise and there's a social enterprise, I think we are looking at it wrong. Maybe there should be an enterprise and an anti-social enterprise. Right? Because every enterprise has to have in its DNA and the core a purpose.
Yeah.
Right? What is the purpose? Which is what Jamshedji Tata so beautifully described, right? Defined. If you can embed that, and then you make sure that you run it like an enterprise, with a high regimen of execution, of making sure that operational excellence, making sure that it's profitable, then that is the best of both worlds, right? So the idea in Rubonomics is, how do you bring markets and social sector together? Right? How do you then figure out at the fringes, what does the collaboration look like? Right? And how can you make sure that it is win-win for everybody? And I think, CSR is attempting to do for 2%. It is just not 2%, it has to be 100%.
Correct. And even that CSR, what I feel is, again, it's mandated by law, and it's only when you make the profit, whatever remains, and then. Because again, as we all know, there are various ways to, reduce that, all of that, right? But I think, to your point, I think that, and again, there are so many studies globally which show that if doing good, feeling good is part of your DNA, you probably make a lot more profit as well, and you're sustainable. Madan, and I want to get your views on the Indian startup ecosystem, the Indian startup revolution, because for our friends in Singapore, it's a fascinating to see a country that's, obviously post-independence had 3 decades of slow growth and then suddenly emerged post-91, and now, it's a world superpower when it comes to tech startups. But maybe just define the ongoing startup revolution in India right now. And if you had to sort of play a critique and say you would like 2 or 3 things to change for India to do even better, what would that be?
Yeah, I know it's been a fascinating view from the inside to see this evolution the last 15 years, and especially the last 8-10 years has been fascinating. There are 3 things that have changed, Prantik, and when we say what needs to go do better, I think one is that entrepreneurship has become very aspirational because of the success stories that we see around, especially in the in the hubs like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Pune, which is the various entrepreneurial hubs of India, right? And especially given that I've been working closely with the state government as well on the entrepreneurship thing, I've seen it how that is developed, right? So there is what I call as the seed. The seed is very fertile when, in fact, I sometimes worry that we are swinging too much to the extreme when everybody feels entrepreneurship is too glamorous and I need to get in without understanding the pains that one needs to go through, right? But I think that has been a huge shift. When I started off MeritTrac, my parents refused to attend any social function after a few months because they were tired of answering the question, oh, what is your son doing sitting at home? MBA? Did he get fired? Is there some mental problem?
That stigma.
Yeah. And they said, you know what, till you tell me what you're doing, I'm not going out, right? So, and that has changed. It's now, it's somebody was showing me a smattering of marriage ads. And one of the ads, which actually is a good reflection of our society, one of the ads said, looking for a groom for my daughter who's preferably Series A funded.
That's my favorite moment of this podcast on record. Not an exit, but Series A funded.
Right?
I'm glad it didn't say by which VC.
Exactly. And at what valuation.
That'll happen.
It'll happen, right? So that shows the shifting perspective, right? The second thing is the soil, which is if you take the seed soil climate analogy.
Correct.
The soil has become very fertile because in Bangalore, everybody is talking about how do you support startups. So you go to you go meet the income tax commissioner. He's saying, hey, startups are very important.
Yeah.
And one of them in one of our interactions in Bangalore said, if there's any issue with a file by a startup, I keep it aside and accord it the highest priority. Right? Because I don't want startups to suffer. Right?
Yeah.
Similarly, you say the government, Karnataka government, we've been running a grant program called Elevate.
Yeah.
More than 1,000 startups have got a grant of between 25 to 50 lakhs to get started out, right? And the government runs it through a very structured process to give this grant. So there's support from the government. The banks are coming out with a variety of schemes to help entrepreneurs. Academic institutions are over-indexing on entrepreneurship and creating incubators, accelerators. So you can see all the ecosystem actors coming together. And I think that's been a part of the magic as well. And lastly, that the policy level, which is the climate, both at the central and at the state, there have been very progressive policies. Startup India itself was a huge signal to say, listen, we're going to talk about startups. And to see, from 15,000 startups then to 250,000 odd startups now registered on the Startup India registered startup has been a massive journey.
So, and you're also seeing, sitting out, we also see even our non-Indian friends talk about, wow, look at the exit markets, look at the IPO markets. How is that shaping up? Of course, this year's been a little quiet given various global reasons, but you think that's sustainable, the IPOs and these exits that the Indian startups are enjoying?
I think so, because the exits are also a sign of maturity of the system. And that's why you see the last 2 years, it's just not a 2-year journey, right? I mean, look at you look at a PhonePe or you look at a Swiggy, it's all been an 8 to 10 year journey. To get to where they are. And given that as the markets mature and the startups mature, this is going to be the norm, right? And given the climate around support for startups, there is an excitement in the public that, listen, this will grow. And therefore we need to be a part of this. So I think that's a given, except that, of course, one of the challenges have always been, valuations have mattered. It is about profitability. And one of the things that we have to do, especially in emerging spaces like deep tech, and where you will have to have a longer gestation cycle to get there. Somebody needs to bring in that patient capital to ride the journey out. But I think there is an overall excitement. And the exits, as you said, through the IPO are here to say, and we're seeing a lot more investors join the party as well.
So if there's one suggestion that you would have, in your seed, soil, climate sort of a perspective framing, if there's one desire that you have as an entrepreneur or as someone who champions the movement, what would that one change be?
I think we got to democratize that whole movement. Every district, as I'm saying, if you go back to the thing that talent and entrepreneurial spirit is evenly distributed, but opportunities aren't. We should be able to take this seed soil climate into every district of the country. And what better example than the thriving we are seeing in Thai chapters in India, right? You see at Thai Surat, now Thai Raipur has come up, right? We've had, closer home in Bangalore, we've had Thai Mangalore doing so well, 3 large exits from the ecosystem in less than 4 years. Is gotten everybody sitting up and taking notice to say, hey, 3 large tech exits, from scaled startups from that region. So it shows that, listen, there are 750 plus districts. Imagine recreating that magic in each and every one of those districts. Interestingly, DPIIT, which runs Startup India, has come out with a very interesting initiative called Tejas, which is all about transforming entrepreneurial journeys across states and districts. And they have taken this up that every district we will see this entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I think that is what is required. It's happening. We need to accelerate that at a much faster pace.
And you think that's India's defensibility with this? There's a whole fear at one end. So I was in the US a couple of weeks ago for TiCon, and there was one, of course, a lot of excitement about what AI is bringing to the table. But there's also fear that the quote-unquote typical jobs, or the Indian IT sector jobs, are going to be at stake. So do you sort of see entrepreneurship as a as a shield, so to speak, in the age of AI through Tejas, that if there are more entrepreneurs, we're not dependent on that corporate job per se.
Exactly. And there are three elements to what you said, Prantik. Irrespective of AI, India will add 150 million youth to the workforce the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? If you take the corporate jobs today, the salaried corporate jobs is less than 10%. Even if it goes to 20, and when we find 20, 30 million of them jobs, what happens to the remaining 120 million people?
Yeah.
And the only plausible answer to that is, can you create 10 million entrepreneurs who can create 10 jobs each? I'm not talking of the unicorns.
Yeah.
I'm saying small businesses, but which are run entrepreneurially.
Yeah.
Who can generate maybe 8, 10, couple of $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Right? 8, 10 crores. And then be able to hire 10 people locally. Right?
Yeah.
Now you add AI to it. One, of course, there's a challenge. Two is I see it as a massive opportunity, which is how I got started out with this whole concept of JanAI.
Yeah.
Saying what India needs is not more of Gen AI, but Jan, as in people. I think in this context, the way to look at it is, how can we leverage the power of AI to impact the society positively, especially with jobs and development, right? So when we apply that lens, then you can really start seeing more opportunities and possibilities, because the beauty of AI is you can almost reimagine anything and everything.
Correct.
By adding this layer of technology to it, right? So it gives us an opportunity to solve some of the most intractable problems that we have faced. Farmer incomes, healthcare, availability of good doctors, teaching. How do you make teachers much more powerful in the classrooms? How do you find more jobs locally, right? How do you grow MSMEs? How do you ensure access to capital? All of them can be reimagined through the lens of AI. And to me, that can powerfully transform the way districts can develop while promoting youth entrepreneurship and creating new possibilities.
It's a beautiful way how you sort of connected those dots. And by the way, I love the way you frame things, JanAI, whether Rubonomics, I think that's a talent and skill in itself. And so I think the beautiful part that I see in your journey is, like you said, after your own exit, there was something that shifted. And then, of course, you've been involved with, through various initiatives, Game, OneBridge, we'll probably need 3 hours of podcasting on each. But one thing that strikes me, and, tell me your view on this, that, in India, when I meet the founders in Pune, Bangalore, when I go home, is everyone has this aspiration, to your point, that, boss, I'm going to make this big startup and unicorn. But when I see you, every time I hear you, you're not chasing that, but every time what I see is you are looking to leverage entrepreneurship to create a movement as opposed to your own unicorn startup. So maybe give us a quick overview of these initiatives, Head Held High, Game, OneBridge. Are these all part of a much larger movement that Madan and team are driving for India?
Oh, absolutely. And in my mind, when people say, why do you do so many things and how do you do it? I say, no, in my mind, there's only one thing. Though my wife vehemently disagrees. She says, you can fit in anything under that and say it's one thing.
Right? The chairwoman has her say.
But the point is, and this clarity came in about 10 years ago. I spent, after I had moved out of Manipal, spent a couple of years. I said, listen, I need to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I spent about 9 days at Sabarmati Ashram in 2016.
Yeah.
We did a very interesting program called Lead Like Gandhi. And one of the key elements was to discover our purpose, right? Or to articulate our purpose. It's all there.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because can you then hold that purpose and say, this is what I live for.
Yeah.
And I'll die for.
Yeah.
And after a lot of soul searching, inspiration from, of course, the holy place that is Sabarmati Ashram, I put down my purpose statement and it still gives me goosebumps every day when I read it and write it. I do that every day. To say the purpose of my life is to serve the Supreme by empowering every human being to unleash their infinite potential, to create a world of abundance and oneness. Right? So that became my mantra. If you look at the 4 elements to create that, right? The unlimited potential comes through Head Held High.
Yeah.
Right? How do you unleash unlimited potential in human beings, in youth, comes from that. Now, to create a world of abundance, you need entrepreneurs and you need business models. Right? So Game, the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, is all about unleashing the power of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right? Which brings the second element of the Rubonomics framework.
Yeah.
OneBridge became a manifestation of taking e-commerce
Right.
and digital commerce to rural, but through jobs. So that intersects with both the technology angle that I talked about in the Rubonomics framework and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right. And OneBridge today is now South India's largest last mile delivery organization. In fact, I was just doing the math. We completed 10 years a couple of weeks ago, and we've delivered more than 100 million packages into rural India. And through that process, we have distributed more than 250 crores of income, right, to about 5,000 people.
Yeah.
So that is that arrow which is bringing the entrepreneurship angle.
Yeah.
And JanAI becomes the AI arrow, the tech arrow, to say how do you leverage AI to serve this. So in my mind, if you take aspirations, which is cutting across,
Yeah.
the unlimited potential through head held high. In fact, aspirations, we've launched an initiative called UGraph, which is about understanding the youth aspirations. For GRAF stands for growth, resilience, aspirations, and future readiness. Right? And we are now creating that into a body of work to truly understand what youth want. So UGraph for the aspirations, head held high for the unlimited potential, game and OneBridge on the entrepreneurship side, and JanAI. Now, these are just experiments I'm doing to learn, right? I'm taking this as testing labs. The beauty of organizations, and TIE, of course, falls in very well here from the entrepreneurship standpoint, right?
Of course.
So I've used all of these as test beds to say, what can I learn? What mistakes can I make? Because I have all the
Of course.
playground to do as many things as I want. And then can you package it and trigger a movement? Because if at the end of the day, I define a unicorn in my life not as $1 billion valuation, can you unleash 1 billion smiles? For that, one organization cannot do it. It has to be a movement. So what I'm now doing through the Global or Rubonomics Global Forum or JanAI initiative itself is how do you package these learnings and take it to everybody? And that is where the DPI thinking comes into play.
Of course.
That if you were to visualize all of this, quote unquote, as digital public infrastructure that others can ride on, then you can trigger the movement.
Fantastic. I have one question and then we're going to do a real rapid fire,
Sure.
given the clock's ticking. You spoke about OneBridge. It was obviously been discussed by Prime Minister Modi as well. You obviously had the chance to present your case there. You've obviously won various accolades at TIE Global as well as Social Entrepreneur of the Year. What do all of those accolades mean to you?
Not much. In the sense, it's good to be recognized. But I think the more important part is it gets us to tell the story. But I also think telling the story is meaningless if you're not able to see impact on the ground every day. Right? So my highs and awards in a way come from when I meet our young people. For example, we work with Taj Hotels. We work across, we've been working the last many years, and we have a partnership to train and place 100,000 people. We've already done about 25. When you walk into a Taj property and somebody comes and says, you know what, I'm here because of Head Held High, I think that means much, much more to me than any of the awards, because the gleam in this person's eye to say because of something that you did, my life has changed, I think is probably worth more than any award in the world.
Fascinating, Madan. All right, I'm going to try and keep it as crisp, short as possible. The best book you have read?
I would say very inspired by Dr. Kalam. So all of his books, and very particularly spoke about Pura, the providing urban amenities to rural areas, actually shifted a lot of my thinking.
Your biggest source of inspiration in your life?
My parents, of course. And I would at a larger level say, connecting the book and the biggest source of inspiration is Bhagavad Gita and Lord Krishna. Because for me, I tried to frame entrepreneurship from a Bhagavad Gita lens to say what keeps you going. And I think, that is now shaping a lot of my thinking.
Is there an entrepreneur that has been a role model for you?
Oh, quite a lot of them. Quite a lot of them. But I am fascinated by the way, for example, Nandan Nilekani thinks. Population scale, but yet simplifying technology in such a way that it can reach the masses and taking that to the grassroots. I follow his thinking very closely.
10 years down the road, if Madan was to be an entrepreneur, an investor, a public policy maker, or a politician, where do you see your life sort of moving?
I'll probably put a next option, the fifth or the sixth option. I'll say Nota, but I'll say human being. My sense is journey takes you. You can never predict where you go.
Right.
the only thing I do is I get up in the morning and say, hey, how can I live my purpose? How can I have fun? How can I be with people that I enjoy being with? Like, this conversation is fascinating, right? And end of the day, you just go to bed saying, I live my life well, and you prepare yourself for another day.
And if you meet a new entrepreneur, let's say in Singapore, the cricket club today, and rewinding to your situation where you were struggling post 9/11, and you meet someone today you see that you don't see him smiling, you see that little tense head. What would be your word of advice to a young founder who's struggling today?
Oh, that's pretty simple. I keep saying that to myself and to every other entrepreneur. Lage raho munna bhai. Right? You just got to be at it. I think persistence and the belief in yourself and the belief that the ecosystem is there for you, and things will, if you're convinced enough that it will all fall into play, is super critical.
And one thing that you love the most about Singapore?
Almost everything. I love the cleanliness of the city, the air, and I'm coming back to Singapore. I think I haven't been here after our TGS
yeah.
Singapore. It is. I can see a renewed sense of energy in the city. It's a higher sense of energy. It's fascinating. I mean, it's an ideal city for anybody to wish for. And I'm taking a lot of lessons back to Bangalore, especially about the footpaths here.
All right. This is the final question, and it has to be about Thai, given we are on Thai Talks. You've served in so many committees. You've led the chapter in Bangalore. You continue to do that. You've done such great work at TGS and, of course, at Thai Global as well. Thai, now we're about at year 35, right? Sort of getting in there. Your wish, as you see Thai, let's say 2030, 2050, what's your one wish for Thai globally?
I think we need to, take a longer arc. 35 years is a long time.
Yeah.
If you were to forward it and say, hey, in 15 years, where will Thai be?
Yeah.
And work backwards from there. My wish is that every entrepreneur in the world must be touched by the Thai network in some point of time in their life or the other, right? It could be through networks, mentoring, investments, whatever, right? So can we then say every entrepreneur in the world is a part of the Thai family?
Beautiful. Madan, it's one of those rare conversations where you sort of feel like, damn, why is the clock ticking? I wish we could continue. And I think it's so much to do with the clarity of thinking, your openness to share, and just, I guess, being human. So, thank you so much for joining us. And I really hope we can do this once again, because, whatever that Nota fifth option that you said, I love that, because, you never know where the dots connect. So hopefully in a few years we can do this again. And I would love to sort of track and see, and wish you all the best. And I hope there's a lot more fulfillment in your life than you already have. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Prantik, for hosting me. And I'm continue to be excited by the possibilities between Singapore and Bangalore and Singapore and India, and look forward to doing a lot of stuff together.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you've enjoyed this. It's such a broad-ranging but unifying conversation. What I loved about this conversation with Madan is, he's been an entrepreneur. He has done such great work, both in the social enterprises, but someone who loves to connect dots, as he says in his LinkedIn profile. And that really came through because, in the unifying framework that he mentioned, he believes in the potential and aspirations of people. He believes AI is a unifying, accelerating force. I think the example of Tejas is something I want to read further about. I think what I love is he's always sort of connecting forces that we otherwise think are, disparaging forces, or forces that don't or can't come together, be it social enterprise or for profit, or be it the idea that rural and urban should come together. And I think in all his works, whether it's through game, bridge, there is this larger movement that he's trying to champion, that, entrepreneurship is for everyone. I love the statement that we were all born, hunters or farmers. We're all sort of have that entrepreneurial spirit within us. And, it's not something that we all often debate, is it a skill that you're born with or nurtured? And I always believe that, I think it's not something special that only, people from Ivy League schools can do so. I think it's been proven for centuries that it's a skill you can learn. Of course, some people may be predisposed with certain, benefits when they are born, but I think with the right environment or nurturing, and that's what the Thai movement is all about. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully this has given you some food for thought. If you are looking to start up, hopefully this has given you inspiration. If you're down, hopefully his story of how things change post that conversation in Thai Bangalore. And hopefully to all the charter members, I love that framing that he said, don't worry about attribution, focus on contributing, focus on making the most of the day. So thank you so much. Do continue watching and leave your comments and suggestions. And, we'll continue to do our best to bring you some meaningful conversations that add value to your entrepreneurial life. Thank you.